What if Tyrion never killed Tywin Lannister? Let's explore the depths of it in the video. As always, a part 2 will be made if the video hits 2,500 likes. You know you're going to enjoy the video, might as well give us that like now. Tyrion stares at the ladder leading up to his father's chamber, feeling the whole world fade away as he considers his options. This is perhaps his greatest opportunity for vengeance, the one time where his father was truly vulnerable, and the idea of striking was exciting. But Tyrion forces himself to calm down and consider it rationally. Helpless or not, what is he supposed to do? He is in no shape to fight his father, and he likely has guards nearby. More importantly, it may complicate his escape. While he hates his father, he likes living even more, and already has a clear path to doing so. But perhaps the thing that tops his decision is simply the knowledge that he will have another opportunity to pay his father back. Many people would consider Tywin Lannister an enemy, and they would be eager for someone with his knowledge. Taking one more look back at the ladder, Tyrion dips his head down and makes his way down the hallway. Reports soon circle of Tyrion Lannister's escape. The old lion wastes no time in demanding answers. He has the entire prison staff detained and begins interrogating them while the guards lock down the city and search for him. However, it is as if Tyrion simply disappeared into thin air. Tywin's first suspect is immediately Varys. If there is anyone who can make people simply disappear, it's him. But when he searches for him, the eunuch is gone too. He does not have time to consider this though, as there is much to do. Tywin turns his attention back to the realm. He claims that Tyrion was quietly executed in his cell to prevent a scandal, when any lord asks for proof. A hard glare and a warning that Lannisters are not displayed like common criminals. One person who proves to be a nuisance is Cersei, who is reluctant to leave Tommen and return to Castle Rock. She raves and yells at anyone who suggests otherwise. It is an unbecoming look for the Queen Mother. But with Tywin around, she finds herself greatly diminished as the men who are used to obeying her now answer to Tywin, including her guards. After a few days of resistance, Cersei marches out of the Red Keep with a strong escort of guards, not just to ensure her protection, but to ensure the realm is protected from her. She is to remain there until the arrangements for her marriage are finalized. Jaime, meanwhile, remains the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. If nothing else, Tywin can at least rely on him for that. With the Red Keep secure, he now turns his attention to the rest of the city. Unfortunately, in the few days of chaos dealing with his family, the city has become a hotbed for sparrows, wandering smallfolk, and septums who have flocked here to preach about the injustice of the war and demand the crown answer. Tywin stands with Tommen to personally greet them and listen to their plight. Many come bearing the bones of the dead and tales of war and terror. These are words he has heard many times, including the underlying meaning. For many, there is an underlying accusation that Tywin is responsible. A few even go as far as to blame the lions for their suffering. He listens to all of this in silence before simply promising to handle these matters. Few of them seem satisfied with this, but Tywin will not allow his name to be slandered. However, he knows the sparrows cannot be ignored outright, and if left unchecked, their influence will grow with the small folk. Tywin sends Sir Bonifer Hasty, along with chests of gold, and orders to rebuild the septs and holy places of the Riverlands, while Kevan is sent to finish off the last Stark holdouts. Sir Bonifer is a man well known for his piety. Seeing him acting on Tywin's orders to restore the faith might win back some to his side. Meanwhile, he proclaims that the crown will help the small folk who lost their livelihood in the war by providing them loans to rebuild their homes, farms, and businesses. The only condition is they remain in their homes while the rebuilding happens. This is an opportunity too good for many to pass up. Soon, even the sparrows begin to depart. While the High Sparrow remains an influential figure and even manages to gain a title of High Septim, his influence is far diminished. More importantly, it buys Tywin time from having to pay the crown's debts to the faith. With Tywin spending so much money helping the people rebuild, it is difficult for the High Sparrow to suddenly demand repayment without looking as if he's trying to take money from the small folk. But while the faith is temporarily neutralized, he turns his attention to the Dornish. He knows they are likely furious about what happened to Oberyn, so Tywin has the Mountain's head sent to them to make amends. While it will likely not fully placate them, it can at least make Tywin appear more reasonable. He also allows the Dornish to have a seat as advisors on the small council, to appease them and hopefully counter Tyrell's influence. As for the Tyrells themselves, Tywin grants them some concessions, such as allowing Paxter Redwine to become Master of Ships, while Mace is made an advisor to the king. Lastly, he assigns Randall Tarley to ride south and restore order to the Stormlands, rewarding him but also ensuring he is put to good use. All of these acts and more keep their relationship cordial while letting them maintain some influence. However, most of the small council positions remain dominated by Lannisters or Lannister-affiliated groups. Pycelle remains the Grand Maester. Kevin is made Master of Laws, albeit in absentia, with Matthias Rowan serving as acting master, and Qyburn is made Master of Whispers. As for Master of Coin, Lord Hightower is offered the position. Soon after, the Dornish respond to Tywin, accepting his offer and sending Oberyn's bastard Nymeria to represent them. Tywin takes this as a slight to have a bastard in court, but knows this is likely repayment for the death of the Red Viper, and accepts it through gritted teeth. For the next few months, it seems as though things are going well, as Tywin cuts down spending on the crown, allowing them to focus on repaying the debt of the crown to the Iron Bank, giving them more room to spend. Luckily, his initial plan came to fruition, as the loans he provided the small folk were not only meant to help them rebuild and pacify the faith, but also allow Tywin to tax the citizens and demand repayment of their debts, raising more money for the crown. But while the issues are largely pacified and kept manageable, none are truly ended. Though the Mallisters and Blackwood cease resistance, Riverrun remains defiant to the crown, as does Storm's End and Dragonstone. Even though both castles are under siege, it will take time to capture them. Worse still, there are now rumblings in the north as Stannis has arrived there and begins to rally the houses here to challenge House Bolton. But perhaps the largest threat is Euron Greyjoy, who has begun a campaign in the Reach, taking several coastal settlements. Tywin knows he cannot allow the Tyrells to simply fall, so orders the Lannister fleet in the Westerlands to join them. As the Tyrells try to block their advance further, the Lannister contingent cuts through the choppy waters of the Sunset Sea, banners snapping in the brisk wind. Their target is the Shield Islands, blackened by the plumes of smoke rising from the Ironborn's occupation. Tywin sends his orders from King's Landing. The Shield Islands and the Reach's ports must be reclaimed, and the Ironborn routed. Thankfully, they have one advantage. Euron is not there. At Greenshield, the Ironborn captains are quick to rally their longships, forming a long line that sails up to them. They dart like wolves, shouting profanities from the waves and claim easy victories. The Lannisters and Tyrells, however, fight as one disciplined force. Their heavy galleys formed an impenetrable wall. Ballista fire first, massive bolts ripping through the wooden hulls of the Ironborn longships. A Tyrell galley smashes into an Ironborn ship, splintering its frame and sending its crew tumbling into the sea. The scene replays across a dozen different fights. The Ironborn fight ferociously, launching flamethrowers and hurling grappling hooks to board the larger ships. The sea runs red with blood, but the discipline of the Lannisters and Tyrell forces ensure it's mostly Greyjoy blood. On the far horizon, Euron watches from his ship, Silence. He does not engage along with his most trusted allies. Instead, he orders them to sail away, knowing the other shields are lost. He orders his crew to haul away the spoils of their raids, the gold, grain, and weapons plundered from the Reach's settlements. The loot will keep the rest of the Ironborn loyal, but this defeat will be laid at the feet of those who own the shields. Fires are extinguished, and the banners of the Reach are raised once more over the recaptured ports. Euron's absence in the battle is troubling, but for now, they take the win. In their retreat, however, Euron raids the Westerlands while it's vulnerable. The diminished Lannister fleet there is not enough to fully stop these attacks, and Euron adds to his growing stories, but raids are only a minor nuisance. Something more troubling is taking place in Cracklaw Point, where a small flotilla lands near their forces. At their head, Jon Connington and young Griff arrive to rally the houses of the peninsula to their side. With a small force, they move swiftly, proclaiming young Griff the King of the Seven Kingdoms and Aegon IV. The men of Cracklaw Point are eager to rally behind a Targaryen, especially with how they were neglected under the Baratheon and Lannister dynasties. They provide guides and stiffen his armies, marching the small force right up to Maidenpool. Here, they strike at the town. The cowardly Lord Mutin quickly surrenders to their forces, providing them with a port to land more troops. And with most of the naval strength focused on the Reach, while the Riverlands' military strength is surrounded by Riverrun, there is no force capable of contesting their landing. Soon, the entirety of the Golden Company, including their vaunted elephants, lands in the Riverlands. Their first target is Harrenhal, where Sir Bonifer Hasty is garrisoned. He only has his Holy 100 with him, but quickly sends out a call for their levies to join his army. While only a few lesser lords join his army, he does find help in the Sparrows, who recognize Sir Bonifer's piety and rally to his side, giving him several thousand men. However, he knows this force cannot possibly hold a castle as large as Harrenhal. Instead, he tries to block their advance entirely by striking them at the fjords. At the fjord, Sir Bonifer Hasty stands grimly at the head of his army, a mix of sparrows, lesser lords, retainers, and hedge knights. Their scouts reported a contingent of the Golden Company trying to force a crossing here. Despite his fervor, Sir Bonifer knows they are overmatched. The Golden Company is seasoned, disciplined, and well-equipped, whereas his troops are fervent but poorly trained. The fjords are their only hope, a natural bottleneck that could slow the enemy. A vanguard of the Golden Company rides forward, rushing into the waist-deep water, while their archers provide covering fire. Sir Bonifer's forces counter and soften up the enemy. As the first men reach the shore, the sparrows rush forward with cries of "For the Seven." Arrows whistle through the air, and the fjord becomes a chaotic melee, bodies crashing into the muddy banks. Bonifer's gamble works, for a time, as the Golden Company cannot maintain a stable foothold. But John Connington watches from afar, his sharp mind crafting a different strategy as this goes to plan. While the vanguard fights, he orders a group of engineers to construct rafts packed with earth and grass, sturdy enough to carry the war elephants across the river unnoticed. The great beasts, their dark hides glistening with water, are guided across under cover of night. Young Griff, clad in silver and blue, rides with them, his hair catching in the sky as he rushes towards them. The sheer presence breaks the fragile resolve of the motley host. Even the fanatic sparrows are terrified by the massive beasts that slam into their flanks. They are scattered by the monstrous creatures, while Bonifer himself fights valiantly, but even he is forced to retreat, his remaining forces limping back toward Harrenhal. At Harrenhal, Bonifer considers his options. The castle is too vast to defend, and as he sees the Golden Company assembling outside his walls, he dips his banners and surrenders, expecting to die. But to his astonishment, Aegon offers clemency. Standing before the gathered remnants of Bonifer's army, Aegon invokes the Seven, making a public display of his faith and piety as he has his septa bless the sept in Harrenhal, the supposed cursed castle. Even Sir Bonifer, humbled, bends the knee and swears loyalty to the young Dragon King, along with the other sparrows. Now, with a force that can hold Harrenhal, Aegon puts to work to fortify it and gather their forces. But Bonifer leads the vanguard alongside the sparrows, urging the small folk to rebel against the Freys, while the Golden Company raids the southern areas for supplies, though they are careful to control their behavior to avoid angering the sparrows. One man who doesn't join them is John Connington. He learns from some of the captured river lords that the Freys have sent the bulk of their forces to Riverrun and the north, leaving the castle vulnerable. Under the cover of night, Connington infiltrates the Twins with a small elite force, disguised as merchants and river travelers. The door is opened for them, revealing Walder Rivers, who smiles at them. The Freys were a quarrelsome house even in his day, but as more Freys joined their ranks, they seemed on the verge of civil war. It was easy enough to identify one who might be inclined to betray the others. Once inside, they locate the prisoners held by the Freys, key allies of the River Lords and Northmen. As dawn breaks, chaos erupts within the Twins. Frey guards scramble to contain the breach, but Connington's men carve a path out of the castle. By the time the Freys realize the full scale of the attack, the prisoners and Connington's forces are already disappearing into the Riverlands. The loss is a humiliation for House Frey, but without the prisoners, it is as if a spell has been broken. Now the River Lords suddenly have no incentive to remain loyal, and all across the Riverlands, Frey soldiers and family members are arrested, deposed, and detained, while the other lords waste no time in pledging their support to King Aegon. Kevin barely manages to extract his forces back into the Westerlands as this happens. Within a few months, the entirety of the Riverlands fall under their control. Tywin quickly rushes to gather a host at the Crownlands, while Kevin rebuilds their army in the Westerlands and prepares to push them out. He even recalls Randall Tarley to help in this endeavor, leaving Storm's End and Dragonstone unconquered. With an army, Aegon IV expects the North to soon rally before him. He found many northern prisoners at the Twins and released them as well. However, while some houses are eager to rejoin the war effort, another challenger appears. Stannis rides out of the Wall, crushing the Ironborn and Bolton forces in a series of decisive clashes that retake Winterfell. Although Aegon wished to win the North over with an act of clemency by not demanding their ransom, they had no incentive to pledge allegiance to him. In the war room of Harrenhal, Jon Connington and Aegon study a map of Westeros. The North remains firmly out of reach. Despite Aegon's victories, Stannis' rise and victory at Winterfell create an insurmountable obstacle to winning the northern houses. Just as frustration takes hold, a messenger enters, announcing a visitor, Peter Baelish, the Lord Protector of the Vale. Connington greets Littlefinger warily as he enters, his silken attire a sharp contrast to the hard, war-weathered men around him.
Lord Connington, I hear you've been busy liberating the Riverlands and rousing the banners for young Aegon. A bold endeavor, but boldness alone won't suffice to conquer the Seven Kingdoms.
What is it you want, Baelish?
I've come bearing a gift. A gift that may tilt the balance of this game in your favor. You see, I have someone of great value to you. Someone the North and many in the Riverlands might kill to protect. Sansa Stark, eldest daughter of Ned Stark.
You expect me to believe you have Sansa Stark? And if it were, how could you possibly have her? She's supposed to be dead.
Oh, she's alive, my dear Lord Connington. Alive and well under my care. To the world, she is Elena Stone, my bastard daughter. A convenient disguise to keep her hidden from those who might wish her harm.
What foolishness is this?
I might remind you that the idea of a dead Targaryen prince returning to claim the Iron Throne stretches belief just as far.
If she truly is Sansa Stark, then what do you want?
A simple arrangement. Sansa will marry Harold Harding. Harry the Heir, as he's so charmingly called. This will cement my control over the Vale, ensuring its allegiance to Aegon's cause. In return, the Vale will pledge its knights to your war, thousands of fresh swords and shields. And I will, of course, remain the undisputed ruler of the Vale.
And what does Lady Sansa think of this arrangement?
She understands the importance of duty, as do you, Lord Connington.
Very well. I'll take this to Aegon. But if you cross us, Baelish...
Why, my dear lord, I wouldn't dream of it.
As the pact is forged, Tywin Lannister receives word of the alliance from his spies and immediately recognizes the opportunity. With two claimants to the north, he can pit his rivals against him. He orders the publication of the letter Sansa Stark wrote while imprisoned in King's Landing, acknowledging her father as a traitor. The letter spreads like wildfire through the north, stoking outrage among the Stark loyalists who see their trust in Sansa evaporate. Northern lords, furious and divided, demand action. Some call for her head, while others believe it a ploy of the Lannisters to sow discord. But it hobbles Aegon's efforts and makes one thing clear. The North is not going to sit by and let this stand. In Winterfell, Stannis Baratheon observes the turmoil with satisfaction, knowing it gives him a temporary advantage as more lords rally to him instead. But it will mean there is no hope of peace now. As he makes his preparations, he glances over at a confusing set of letters. At first, it seems like Jon Snow is fine, but then there are reports of a mutiny in Castle Black, and that he is among the dead. But the last claims he is alive once more, and that Melisandre wishes to speak with him immediately. Stannis Baratheon stands in the dimly lit chamber of Winterfell, the air heavy with the scent of burning wood and cold stone. He stares at Melisandre, who rode all the way here with her news. She explains everything that happened and her new visions.
You told me I was Azor Ahai. You claimed I was the savior who would lead the world out of darkness. And now you tell me it's Jon Snow.
I saw it in the flames, Your Grace. When Jon Snow fell, I prayed to Rola and begged for guidance. The Lord of Light brought him back to us, and in the fire, I saw the truth. He is Azor Ahai reborn.
You lied to me. You led me to believe it was my destiny. You led me to war, to sacrifice, and now you tell me it was all for nothing.
No, I saw you in the flames too, as I did before. He was never meant to stand alone, Your Grace. You were always meant to fight by his side. Together you will lead the fight against the Great Other.
Do you think me a fool, woman? You preach visions and prophecies as if they are truths carved in stone. You would have me bend the knee to a bastard, to make a lackey of me as I was to my brother. Perhaps Davos was right. Perhaps it's time I end your lies once and for all.
You can strike me down, Your Grace, but it will not change the truth. You are not his enemy, Stannis. You are his guide, his strength. Without you, he will falter.
As Stannis' fury simmers, Sir Axel Florence steps forward.
Your Grace, the Red Woman may speak in riddles, but there is a sense in what she says. The Lord of Light has spoken, and Jon Snow lives. He no longer belongs to the Night's Watch. They cast him out when they tried to kill him. He has no home, no family, no cause, save the one Rola has given him. With you by his side, you could shape him, advise him. Your hand will be the one to guide the North, and through him, your legacy will endure long after we're gone. You would have me play the tutor to a boy who has no claim to anything but a ruined wall and the loyalty of a few wildlings. Think of it not as tutoring, Your Grace, but as securing the North. He is Ned Stark's blood, and the wildlings already see him as their leader, with you by his side. Winterfell and the North are yours all but in name. When the time comes, he will fight your wars. Bring him to me. If Jon Snow is to be the savior you claim, then I will see it for myself. But make no mistake, woman. If this is another of your deceptions, I will burn you myself.
Jon is soon present with him, alive and well, but the stab wounds in his chest are proof enough of what Melisandre claims. In the great halls, the northern lords all assemble to pledge their service to Stannis, and are surprised that Jon Snow is with him. As the room quiets down, though, Stannis issues a proclamation. He intends to renounce his claim to the Iron Throne in favor of Jon Snow. He no longer sees Sansa as Ned's true heir. Several lords hiss and jeer at her name, grumbling in agreement. Instead, he decides that Jon Snow shall be made Warden of the North. The blood of Ned flows as strongly in him as it does in Sansa, but there is a shuffle of movement as one of the lords steps forward. He is smaller than the rest, but still commands respect. Howland Reed bows before them.
Begging your pardon, Your Grace, but that is not quite true. All of you know me. I have been one of Lord Eddard's closest friends. I rode south with him when we rebelled against the Mad King. I stood with him in the Trident, and I was with him in the Tower of Joy. That was where I met Jon Snow and learned his true name.
A few lords glance out in confusion, but the lord simply continues.
The tale we know of how Ned fathered a bastard is not true. A falsehood crafted to protect the boy at the expense of Ned's honor. No, Jon is a Stark not just by blood, but in name too. He is the one and only child of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, rescued by us at the Tower of Joy.
A gasp ripples across the crowd, and Howland nods his head, and then he drops to a knee before him.
Let me be the first to kneel to you, Jaehaerys Targaryen, third of his name, and ruler of the Seven Kingdoms.
After everything those southern bastards did to us, I'd rather drink a pint of piss than bend my knee to any of them. I don't care if he's the young wolf's brother or cousin. Here stands the only king I'll bend my knee to.
Aye, it seems that kings pop out of trees nowadays. All around them, the Northmen join. Glovers, Mormonts, Hornwoods, and Tallhearts all join in, proclaiming Jaehaerys, the new king, and Stannis his hand. Back in the capital, Tywin finally finishes his mobilization for war. His army is assembled and ready to march, but as he prepares to ride out, a messenger comes galloping in with urgent news. Dragonstone was taken. At first, he believes that the small siege force he sent there has finally broken through, but the messenger shakes his head. He said that when his ship was sailing by, it wasn't Lannister banners flying or Baratheons, it was the Targaryens. And just like that, the War of the Five Kings started anew, with Aegon IV in the Riverlands, Jaehaerys III in the north, Euron in the Iron Islands, and Tommen in King's Landing. And soon, a fifth player will emerge. The Mother of Dragons, Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. If you enjoyed this story, give the video a like. Part 2 will be made at 2,500 likes. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.